sorry.
That's all right. That's all
All
right.
right. Hey, welcome to Bears Banter, where the Bears fans come to meet to talk about the Bears game. Welcome to the prediction show, week number 7. Chicago Bears versus the Chicago Rams on Monday. How everybody's doing tonight?
All is
All
Great.
right.
How are you?
All right. The
That's
Chicago
great.
Rams.
We doing good.
All right.
We doing good.
Okay. All right.
We play the Los Angeles Rams though, not the Chicago Rams.
Oh man, hey, I'm getting
You
that
did it
stuff
again.
right.
You
I
did
did
it
it
again.
again. I did it
We are
again.
playing
You
against
did
Ray
it
Ray and
again.
them. That's all right.
Right. Right.
I combined the names, but that's okay.
All
Hey,
right.
tonight we're doing something special for those out there in Facebook and YouTube. We actually doing our first simulcast of Facebook and YouTube at the same time. So thank you everybody for tuning in. So tonight on the broadcast you have Keith Flournoy, Jay Beasley, Guy Moore, and Tammy Harris,
What
and
up, though?
myself, Bernard Muhammad. So what's going on tonight?
Nothing.
We feeling
Nothing.
kind of good.
Not
You
in
had that good
Chicago.
music beat. I was a little
Yeah,
scared.
Right.
We was
Right.
kicking it. We was up at the spot.
All right, yeah, that house music.
I
Hey,
Yeah, I think
forgot
I'm
we
gonna
were
throw a
doing a
little basement
show.
party.
Hey, we about to end COVID and start a house party, Chicago style.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
That'll work.
Absolutely.
That'll work.
Absolutely.
Right. Hey, let's get to what we're here for tonight, which is to talk about week number 7, Monday night game, Chicago Bears against the Los Angeles Rams. I guess we start where we always start is what do the Bears need to do to win against the Rams? Hey, we'll start out with you, Jay.
I don't know, really, to be honest with you, because we always start the show off like the Bears got to run the ball, but they can't do that. So I don't know, but just take care of the football. Just take care of the football. Neutralize Aaron Donald. I know in the last couple of games, in 18 and 19, Aaron Donald didn't have not one sack against Chicago quarterback, so that's a good thing. In 2018, we defeated them 15-6. In 2019, they beat us 17-7. And the sad thing about that game was we ran 22 more plays on offense than the Rams did, and we scored 7 points. We had 2 missed field goals, and we turned the ball over on downs twice. So, it got to secure the football. We got to play great defense, and just try to score some points. Just try to score some points.
Okay. Hey, Tammy, you're next.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a rough game. I'm praying that they pull it out. But when I was looking at some information on the Rams, it was saying that they were number 1 for pass offense and pass defense, and they number 1 rush offense. So I'm a little worried. I think it's gonna really come down to a defensive game. So I know we've been dependent on our defense a lot, but I think we're going to depend on them even more this game. So I think it's probably going to end up being kind of a low-scoring game, but I'm praying that the Bears pull it out. So I think defense, control the penalties, the stupid penalties especially, and I think they're going to have to find their run game because I don't think they're going to be able to be consistent with the Rams on the passing game. So they're going to have to find a run game.
Okay.
Great point.
Good point.
Great.
Hey, Guy, you're up next.
What do you square or non-ironically speaking, cigarette smoking people do when it's that week before payday and you ain't got no money and you need some? You scuff up and scrimp and save to get that pack. What does that have to do with this? We have to control the clock. We have to have excellent clock management, but we also can't make stupid decisions like we did last week. Like we were in the red zone and we were like the clock was running down and almost got the one they call a timeout. They come right back after the timeout and let
Get delay a game.
Right.
Yeah, delay a game. So we definitely have to run together. But just like Jay said, that's like few and far beyond. Consider we only average 90 yards a game, and It's all we can do, but we really need to control the clock. We need to limit the amount of time that their offense is on the field and try to keep their defense out there. So the only way they can do it is run, pray, and run some more.
Okay.
That sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. Well, first of all, we talking about running the ball. That's what we always say every week. So at this point, I think we are who we are. So we need to try to figure out some ways to accomplish the same thing while disguising what we're doing. So instead of clearly we don't have the ability to run, so we're gonna have to start trying to implement a short passing game. Not necessarily those screens because they're pretty terrible, but in some cases, a 5-yard pass will do the same thing as a run. As long as they actually catch the ball, it keeps the clock moving, keeps you moving forward. For whatever reason, we're not physically imposing enough to actually establish a run offense, so we're going to have to think of some other ways to accomplish the same thing. Aaron Donald is a problem. that dude, he just is. And somebody had the nerve to let him know that he hadn't sacked Nick Foles yet.
Nick Foles, yeah.
That just gave him that much more motivation. So
what you say about my mama?
Jalen Ramsey might pick a fight with somebody because every week he's ready to kind of get a little down and dirty. I think that's part of his game plan. The good thing about the Rams is that they got Leonard Floyd, so he can continue not making tackles for another team, and we can see it ain't just us. So
right.
Sure enough.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with y'all. We've shown that we cannot run the ball, and we haven't shown any commitment to running the ball. But I did get a chance to watch the Rams against San Francisco. I watched that game against the 49ers, and one of the things I did realize is what you said about shortening it. Unfortunately, the Bears can't run the screen. They did run one successful one last week. But I noticed in that 49ers game, I swear, every 4 plays was a screen. And they got screens to perfection. And they was killing them the Rams all night on screens. They just let their aggression work against them. I mean, these screens was breaking for at least 8 yards a pop at a minimum on them.
Yep.
And they ran it to perfection. But since the Bears can't run a screen, and we know that, maybe they got to go with some shuttle passes, because that's about all they probably can do. They can't run a screen. But run some shuttle passes, play great defense, and keep it a low-scoring game. Clock manage the game, and let's see what happened. But I was looking at that Rams defense.
Yeah,
they look pretty good.
But you know what? I'm not impressed by the Rams defense. I'm not impressed. Like I said, if you control Aaron Donald, you're gonna be okay. Allen Robinson is gonna probably be against Jalen Ramsey most of the day, and that means Jalen Ramsey gonna have his hands full. Also, I'm really not impressed. I mean, outside of they do have 20 sacks on the season. The Rams do. They got 20 sacks on the season as far as defensively, but other than that, I'm not impressed because Garoppolo really kind of like chewed them up in the passing game. So I'm not impressed.
Yeah,
I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not impressed by what's his name, Jared Goff.
Not at all.
Not at all.
Right.
Hey, y'all know
he gonna give a couple of gifts. He gonna give some gifts.
And y'all know me. Y'all know every week I got a caveat. In the last 2 seasons.
Caveat time.
Okay.
Caveat. This is the time for the caveat.
I got a caveat. In 2018 and 2019 combined, those 2 games, Jared Goff threw 5 picks and no interceptions against the Bears. I'm just saying. So there you go.
So we like him.
I like him. I like him.
Let me share some stats that I have right now before we move to the next phase of our conversation. The Rams defense is ranked number 4. They give up about 19 points a game. The Bears defense is ranked 7, giving up 19.3 points a game. Really not much of a difference, really. The Rams offense is ranked 10th. They score about 25.3 points a game. The Bears offense is 28. Man, they trying to struggle down with the bottom feeders.
They are the bottom feeders.
Right. You know, they 21.3 points a game. The Bears are right now going into this game with a record of 5-1.
I'll take it.
Rams are going into this game with a record of 4-2. And looking at both teams, some of the victories, neither team have beat any teams.
Nobody. Right. Nobody.
The team that could have showed up against that would have been impressed was the Bills, and the Bills beat them by 3, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So
hey,
so you are who your record is. You are who your record is. And that's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are who your record is. Hey, let's do a recap on this before we do the predictions. I mean, we got the people that's showing off and showing out. Those are the 4-2 people.
That's right. That's right.
Sammy 4-2. Jay and myself are 3-3. Guys 4-2, and Plank is 4-2. So now we're about to get to the tough part. What is your predictions for Monday? Who wanna take that brave shot first?
23-20 Bears.
Okay.
God jumped out there.
That's close to what I was gonna say.
23-30. What's you said?
23-20. 23-20
Bears. You want to go, Tammy? You said you got a score.
I was gonna say 24-20 Bears. Even though they say the Rams have more overall talent, I think we got talent that we just haven't fully tapped into and haven't fully found our rhythm. But I think we got it there. I'm just hoping that they gel and can bring it together. But I think we can pull it out, even though the Rams, they say, have a lot of weapons.
Okay. Hey, what about you, Jay?
16-14. Bears win. Cairo Santo will be the man again this week. 16-14 Chicago Bears.
All right.
Okay, Plank, what about you?
Well, looks like I'm gonna complete the sweep. I'm going Bears 21-17.
21-17. Man.
Well, what this basically means is you guys don't get to gain any ground on us this week.
Yeah.
What did your boy say? He said, "You are what your record is." Spit it out.
So no matter what happens, we fill the game up on you guys, right?
Yep. 17-14 Bears.
All right.
Okay. 17-14.
Yeah.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Let's hope it turns out that way. So
right. So hey,
there's a two-portion. Yeah, the good part about it is we all on the same page. The bad part about it for y'all, even if we all right or wrong, we still up.
I still up.
I'm just acting silly here, man. I'm sorry. No,
hey, okay, let me do a recap. Guy picked the Bears 23-20. Tammy picked the Bears 24-20. Jay picked the Bears 16-14. Plank picked the Bears. What was that, Tammy?
No, I was just saying that's very possible because I was thinking lower, but I said I'm gonna go higher. But he might be right.
Okay. Plank picked the Bears 21-17, and I picked the Bears 17-14.
For a pick six, so that defense can score too, right?
Yes.
So let's see how that's going.
Yeah.
Like I said, golf has thrown 5 picks.
As long as they
Golf has thrown 5 picks in the last 2 games against the Bears.
We like them.
Okay.
Hey, but you know which?
Like we should say. I'm sorry. Go ahead, guy.
No, you go ahead, brother.
No. I was gonna say, our whole thing. We sit in the stands. We be like, I smell a pit.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting on my couch like, I smell a pit, and that's what's gonna happen. That's what's gonna happen.
Is open the whole game.
Yeah.
Speak it into fruition.
Yeah. He's gonna give a
Absolutely.
couple of gifts away. He's gonna give a couple of gifts away.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's in that spirit. He in that Christmas spirit a little early.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
All right. That
Christmas in
works.
Christmas in Los Angeles. I'll take it.
Right. Hey, we about to move to a segment called Football 101, which
All right.
this week we're gonna do the defensive side of the field again because the first week was Jason Williams where he did linebackers. Last week Jay did receivers, and this week Plank is going to do uh, defensive formations. Plank was Plank. Why don't you start off by giving us an introduction as far as tell us where you played high school football at and where you played college football at?
Absolutely. So I actually started out in the Park District in Pop Warner at Ogden Park in South Side of Chicago. We had quite a few greats there. Lim Bloom was where I matriculated to high school, and we played there. Actually, we played in city championship game. First time for Lim Bloom in quite a while. And then I played 1 year at Triton Junior College. That was, my college experience, basically because at 155 pounds, you weren't going to necessarily play a whole lot of football. So I wasn't the massive guy that I am now, but I'm glad to talk about this segment.
Okay.
But I do can hit like a wildcat.
So what we about to do, Plank, is we about to have this defensive backs versus wide receivers.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Bring it. Come on,
Yeah.
Jay.
I know Jay broke down that route tree last week, and we know
Right.
offensively, we like to dominate you defensive guys. So what you would like to start off with a line formation? So it's all yours, Plank.
All right. We got that PowerPoint, that Bears banner that I actually created. Let me know if you can see this. It should say Bears banner football 101.
Yes, hold on, let me bring it in.
Okay.
I see it.
There we go.
All right. So let's kind of start, visually breaking down what we are talking about on some of these concepts. First thing, let's kind of talk about a defense. It all comes down to math. So everything that we're talking about is math based. So when we're talking about a 3-4 defense, that basically means you see these three guys in blue. These are the defensive linemen. So you got a nose guard and the defensive tackles on either side, and the 4 linebackers. So those linebackers are denoted in green. Strangely enough, this 3-4 defense is fundamentally no different than the old Oklahoma 52. You're playing the exact same constructs. We just changed naming conventions for whatever reason. And at this point, we've got on the back of the defense, this is your defensive backfield. So your cornerback, free safety, and strong safety. And that actually breaks out the basic defensive formation of a 3-4. All right, let's change it a little bit. So now we got a 4-3 defense. So basically, all of this always comes down to math. So when we're talking about 4, that's these down defensive linemen. So you got the defensive end, 2 defensive tackles, and an end on the other side. And then you've got 3 linebackers. The 3 linebackers, a lot of times when we start talking about naming conventions and nomenclature, we come up with different acronyms to call them. It really doesn't disguise it for anybody, but over the years, it made it that much easier to identify it. So the M is a middle linebacker. That's what most defensive call a Mike. So if you start hearing quarterbacks out there saying, Mike, 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 they're trying to identify where that middle linebacker is so that their offensive linemen have the ability to pick up the blocking schemes. This guy over here, the S, that's the strong side linebacker. And what they generally call him is the Sam. So Sam, anytime you start hearing references to Sam, that's a strong side linebacker. And then you've got the W, which is the weak side linebacker. We denote him as the Will. So when we're talking about defensive 4-3, or what have you, these are the basic formations and constructs of the defensive linemen in front and how many linebackers are behind them. Generally, you need those 4 defensive backs to kind of make sure that your defense is solvent. but that the basic schemes of the defense are defensive linemen and linebackers. So you can have a 2-6 or 1-7. That would be pretty crazy, but it could be something that you could actually support. So let's continue on a little bit, and let's talk about the next iteration. So now we start talking about coverage. When we talk about coverage, this is basically how is the defense going to respond to all of the wide receivers that came out. So when Jay was talking last week, he was talking about things like a route tree and where the wide receivers have the ability of going. I said before, all of this is based on math. So think about it. If we're talking about things that are based on math, there's a such thing as a cover one. Cover one or cover zero, they basically mean this is going to be a man-to-man. So wherever the man in front of you goes, you have to go. So think about it. If that receiver, if Jay's out there and I'm man-to-man on him, and he runs 30 yards down the field, I've got to run 30 yards down the field to keep up with him. So what's going to happen? Probably I'll get tired. Eventually, it's extremely hard trying to keep up with somebody as fast and shifty and elusive as Jay. So that's already putting me at a detriment. So what you want to do is start developing zone defenses instead of having to run 30 yards to keep him. I might run 4 yards and wait for him to get to me. So I'm like, okay, so by the time Jay comes there, I'm already sitting there waiting like, yeah, I can't wait for him to get here. That's probably a better way of doing that. But, the most important thing is we try to disguise what we're doing. So when we start talking about things like 4-3 defense, cover 2, the coverage is basically how many people you have that are protecting your back zone. So let's go into talking about that wide receiver route tree. So this was where Jay talked about this last week. And as a matter of fact, I learned so much new about this. It was really great. I'm always going to have hats off to you, Jay, but right now you're taking a loss today, buddy.
Lay in the wood.
So what we can see if we're actually looking at this route tree, we see all these different routes that the receivers are running. One, you're seeing a receiver running a flat. Another, you're seeing him running this number 4 curl or the out or whatever. All of these, if I'm trying to keep up with this guy as a man-to-man, that is a nightmare. And that's a nightmare if it's a guy that's slow with little skills. Somebody that's actually skilled that makes every route look the same, it's going to be extremely difficult to keep up with him. So in that case, what we end up doing is going into what's called a zone defense. So let's spend a little time talking about the coverages. And I only got 2 more slides left, but I want to make sure we can get into this. So at the very least, the people that are watching the game have a better idea of what they're actually looking for. So when we start talking about cover 2, the coverage dictates the number of deep defenders. So if we've got a cover 2, what that means is we've got 2 guys back there that are split the field in half, and they're responsible for anything deep within that field. If we got cover 3, there's going to be 3 guys that are splitting the coverage in the third. There's also a cover 4, cover 5, what have you. Those get into what's called like prevent defenses. I don't like prevent defenses because they prevent you from winning the game, but it gives you a kind of an idea of what we're talking about here. So how cover 2 actually correlates to that wide receiver route tree. This guy, the 2 safeties or corners, it can be either way, are responsible for anything deep. So at the bottom here, you got your linebackers. In some cases, they've got corners or safeties that are playing a part here. They're responsible for the underneath zone. So when we're talking about a cover 2, a traditional cover 2, we've got 2 safeties deep, responsible for anything that's going deep, and 5 underneath zones. So when you see somebody score a 40-yard touchdown bomb, that's always on those deep people.
Okay.
Now, there's a variation of that. So those of us that are Chicago Bears fans, that's all of us. We remember this thing that Lovie Smith brought called a Tampa 2. So they had a different variation of that cover 2. What their variation was, they still had those 2 deep safeties, but this middle curl zone, you use Brian Urlacher, and because he was an extremely athletic linebacker, he had the ability of dropping very deep into that zone, almost as far as the safeties would. So you started getting people like Brian Urlacher, or that, I can't remember the linebacker name from Tampa, number 55.
Derek Brooks.
Derek
Derek Brooks. So he was another guy that was athletic. So he traditionally played safety. And as he got older and bigger and stronger, he still had kept his same safety skills. So they were able to push him back a little bit further into the middle of the field. And it made it that much more difficult to complete a pass against them. So,
hey, Mike, I have a question.
Oh, what we got?
Okay.
Woo!
Okay. So I'm looking at Jay's route tree, right?
Yep.
Okay. I don't remember all the numbers, but I'm looking at that zone that you showed. Let me bring that back on the screen. This zone. Okay, there's the route tree. Let me see if I can see that. Hold on, make it a little big because I can't really see that.
Okay.
So I've got a 7, a 5, and a 3. Let's go there. So
Corner, out, come back. Okay.
right. So I'm going to put 3. I'm gonna motion my guy and put 3 guys on that side of the field.
Okay.
Okay. And I realize you're running that zone that you just seen. So I'm gonna run one guy deep on that 7 route.
Yep.
To try to get your corner, and between your corner and the safety, hoping that between the two of them, they're going to cover that 7 route. Then I may run one of those guys on that 3 route, right? Because that's the one I'm probably going to hit.
Okay. That's a great idea.
Okay.
So that
Let's go.
That 7 route is always going to be the responsibility of that deep safety. So whoever's got that deep zone. So all he has to do is wait and see and watch what comes to him. That's the great thing about a zone defense. As far as the guy that's running that comeback, you've already got these 5 underneath zones with people out there waiting for nothing to do. So what if they end up throwing 2 guys into that same zone? I ended up I told you it comes down to math, right? I'm 3 yards away from one receiver and 4 yards away from the other receiver. Okay, he makes a catch. I'm comfortable making that tackle, making sure he doesn't get any yards after the catch, and that's a minimum gain from their perspective. So
you remember back in the 90s, one of the college teams that were famous at doing that, what I just said was Florida, where Shane Matthews was the quarterback.
Well, he couldn't throw with 7 yards.
He could throw with 7 yards.
Right.
But you remember in the national championship game, the D-back finally at the end of the game set on that route. And when he tried to go to that underneath route, he faked like he was going to cover because all game long they kept biting on it. They kept biting on the 7 route, and the corner kept going, and him and the safety was covering the same guy. At the end of the game, he finally said, "This is not about to happen again." And he sat on that route and came and picked it off.
That's a good gamble because if you think about it, from that zone defense, he already had the safety over the top. So even if he missed played it or whatever, there's another guy defending you. And he got a pick 6, and that made the difference in the game. That actually reminds me of one of the things that happened in the game that we were playing in Soldier Field when I was in high school playing for Lindblom, and we had a player that was hurt. So the defense, we were really killing the offense we were playing against, and our player was hurt. And I'm looking at the ref, and I said, "Timeout, ref, timeout, ref." And he said, "Well, why do you guys need a timeout?" I said, "We only got 10 guys on the field." And he looked at me and said, "That's all y'all need." So, I was like, okay. So the refs are fans as well. So that's a great point. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Any of y'all got any questions on this before next slide? Okay.
I do. Keith, let me ask you a question. Like when I see zone defenses, I look at how like the cornerbacks line up. Now, why is it that a lot of times when I see zone defenses that the cornerbacks are sort of turned, instead of facing the guy, they're usually turned into like almost like the line of scrimmage?
Right. because they're trying to get back and cover that zone, and they're turning their body in such a way they can see the whole field, and they're trying to see who may be coming from the other side of the field that enters that zone. So think about it. You got two deep safeties that are responsible for everything deep on splitting half of the field, and you also have the people that are in the under coverages that are responsible for anybody that enters there. You can't leave there until the play's over.
Right.
So if I'm in the under coverage and I'm responsible for the flat or for the curl, I'm sitting up there waiting for somebody to come into that flat or the curl.
Mhm.
That's what the best and most disciplined defenses do. A lot of defenses get lazy, and 2 or 3 seconds in, they're like, "Oh, nobody's here. Let me run around here." Then all of a sudden, you see a running back just runs out to the flat, gets a 2-yard catch, and runs it and turns it into a first down. That's
what
when
makes
you have an undisciplined defense. Yeah.
And that's what makes football so beautiful, because I always said it was like 13 different types of games being played, chess matches. You got 11 players, you got the coaches, and you got the clock. And a lot of times when you're dealing with like this, the corners, like for example, they're
That's a
in the
good
zone.
point.
A lot of
That's
times
a good
their
point.
onus is like, especially when they're like leaned in towards the line of scrimmage, when they're sticking the guy. A lot of times what they're trying to do is, of course, use the sideline as that extra man, but they're trying to force their receiver towards the middle to the help.
You're absolutely correct. So, this is, again, chess versus checkers. We're trying to outsmart what the other guy is throwing together. And, you got any number of other defenses that you can throw if you got a receiver that's got great physical skills and he's the only one that's really a threat, you might try to put him in a box and one. So that's basically like putting them on Revis Island. No matter where that receiver goes, I'm going to put my best defender against him, and I'm going to put that defender in a man-to-man against that receiver. And at the same time, I had the benefit of those secondary zone players being able to help us out.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if y'all happen to play Madden, I'm going to tell you something. If you got a defense with that team, don't switch to another one, because you might be the Bears and play with the Eagles defense and your corners suck and you playing man-to-man and you finding a water boy like 30 yards open. That was a joke, but it's real, though. I mean, the personnel fits the actual defense.
I agree with you.
Hey, Jay, I got one question before you go, and I want to pick Jay brain on this.
Ooh.
What Mike just said,
receiver versus DB again. Come on, Jay, what you got?
Okay, Jay, as far as what Plank just said, and he said defensive playing zones, can you explain when they said a receiver sat down in the zone, or he sat down like in the open part of the zone? What does that mean as far as from your point of view? What does that mean?
So a lot of times when you come up against a defense and they playing in a zone, what you want to do is you want to find an open spot. That's what you want to do. You want to find an open spot. So if you just say if they're playing in a cover 2 and your route requires you, regardless, we'll just use a hook route. What you want to do is find the soft spot. And I know y'all hear that all the time. The commentators say, he found a soft spot in the zone. So what you want to do is you want to find a spot in between the safety and the corner, or if it's in the middle of the field, you want to find that soft zone between the linebackers and the safeties. And that way, it's an opening. I mean, if you look at it, sometimes it'd be so pretty because you'd be like, oh, the quarterback can't miss this because it's an opening. It's right there. It's a soft spot. And a lot of times, when you make that reception, you either gonna make the reception, move the chains, or like I said last week, if you make that reception, break a tackle, got some yak. So it just really so that's what they mean. So when they talk about in the zone, it's just finding this soft spot, basically where there's not a defender.
Okay. Hey, Tammy, did you have any questions before Keith move over to the next slide?
No, you can keep going.
Okay.
I'm going to get Tammy on this next one because we're going to have a math exercise.
Okay.
so we know she's good in math. All right, so next to the last slide, we're talking about defensive formation 4-3. Remember, I said 4-3 deals with those first two numbers are dealing with the defensive linemen and the linebackers. So anytime you hear that it called out like they're 52, 4-3, 31, whatever, that's letting you know where your linemen are going and where your linebackers are going. Then when we put the coverage in there, cover 2, cover 3, this is letting you know how we're doing pass defense. Exactly how we're going to fan out the field when we're trying to protect against the pass. So let's get into this last slide here. This is a cover 3. When we start talking about a cover 3, what we got is 3 defensive blacks, or in some cases it's a linebacker that are filling these 3 outside zones. So when we start talking about it from a mathematical perspective, Tammy, this is to you, right? We've got 11 people on the team, on the field. If we're in a cover 2, how many do we have that are on the underneath zone?
What?
If we've got a cover 2 defense, right? How many players do we have in the underneath zone?
And the underneath zone is that back part?
This is this bottom part.
Bottom part.
So 11 divided by 4. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, I'm gonna help you out a little bit.
You're close.
Okay,
Yep.
That's very good.
That's
though,
actually,
okay?
yep, it is.
So if we're in a cover 3, that means 3 in the back. We already have the 4 defensive linemen. That's going to show us with 5 in the under zone. If we're doing with 4 in the under zone. If we're doing a cover 2, that guy from the deep middle comes down here and he protects that underneath zone. So cover 2 means you got the deep halves split in half, and then you've got 5 underneath zones. So what happens if we do let's just throw this out, Tammy, God, Jay. What if we do a cover 4?
If you do
How
cover
many
4,
people do we have?
Don't do it.
3 under.
Boom!
It's called a
It comes down
to me,
to the math. But what
to me, it's called a prevent defense, and it don't work.
It don't work.
It sure don't. It sure don't.
So I want to leave with this. A lot of times teams come up with this different nomenclature. We got a MAC. We're doing a coverage back. That's just naming conventions for that team. You can put a cat in the oven, that don't make it a biscuit, right?
Right.
So whatever they
call
call
it, you just got a cat.
So that actually gives you an idea. And this is just basic defensive formations. There's going to be any number of variations. But as I started out with, the 52 defense from Oklahoma in the 1950s is the exact same thing as the 3.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
And then there's that vaunted defense that we used to carry for years, the 4-6 defense.
Well, that's a whole
well, strangely enough, though, the 4-6 defense was not named after the number of players. It was named, as a matter of fact, hey,
that's how you got your name. Sending folks to the emergency room.
There you go.
But you know what? One thing I can say about the 46 defense, though, it worked back then. Guess what? It won't work now.
It worked back then until they played against who? Dan Marino,
Everybody but Dan Marino, and he did that 2-step drop and
what did he do? He started exploiting quick passes and then exposed the 4-6 defense. You're right.
You got Plank on that weak side out there sneaking up on the line, bouncing in. You got your fast line back on the outside, coming on the outside. You got your covered guy in the middle. You got your other guy to rush the block guy in the middle. And the way it was, you see all these people coming, you go 1, 2, 3, it's too late. But he was doing them 2-step drops, and I was like, man, Les Frazier was like, will y'all please shoot this dude?
Wait a minute.
Because
Tammy J.
Because football has evolved. Right.
Man, guy.
I graduated from Lindblom.
I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead, Jay.
I'm just saying because the passing game has evolved so much in the NFL right now. The 46 defense, it wouldn't work today. And it was a couple of teams that tried to run it a couple of years ago. They were showing variations of the 46 defense, but because how the passing game in the NFL has evolved right now, it won't work.
Well,
it just
I'm
won't
arguing
work.
with you just a little bit on that, Jay. It won't work as your base defense
It
You're
sure
right, 'cause
won't.
we know how to
Right.
beat it. But you can switch
Right.
if you can
Right.
switch up and catch them at the right time.
Right.
That's why it's a
Yeah,
game
I
of
agree
chess,
with that.
right?
Like you do,
Okay.
you run a
Yeah,
couple,
yeah.
you go on a 4-6 and run a couple fake blitzes. You do it about 3 or 4 times. Then towards the end of the game, they're like, oh, they've been stacking this up. They wait for it, don't come. And when they don't, then here they come. But like you said, Jay, because the way the offense is a lot more intricate as far as what they do now, it's really hard, man.
Yeah.
Except
It
for
is.
us, they can run
It
a
is.
4-6 on our offense.
Hey, we're gonna wrap up the broadcast in about a minute and a half. Frank, that was a very good presentation.
Man.
All right.
And you know, one of the things I was thinking about, you was looking at the zones to help people out understand zones when they run zones. That sometimes teams run a zone on one side of the field and run man coverage on the other side of the field. And this is one of the reasons why a quarterback sometimes take a guy, put him in motion, and halfway through him going in motion, he sends him back to see if the guy covering him moves. Now, defense is smart, right? Let's say in a situation where you got half the field. If you send him back, that guy went half the field and went back. Smart quarterbacks like Brady and Aaron Rodgers send you in motion again and send you all the way across the field. Now, if it was like half zone and half man to man, that guy doesn't go all the way across the field. He goes back to his side of the field. Now they realize half the field is in zone and the other half is in man. And so what teams do, like the Patriots, is they run that drag route right underneath. They clear that zone out by sending those guys deep, and they run a drag route, which Jay showed on that tree, which is just a route where you start on one side of the field and drag all the way across for 3 or 4 yards, and that's why you see those guys and there's nobody there. And he catch that ball, there's nobody. Hey, what you about to say, Jay?
If Nagy was smart this week, he would use a lot of motion. He would use a lot of motion because watching the Rams last week, kind of what you said, Bernard, where they playing man on one side and zone on another side. Jalen Ramsey is going to be locked up with Allen Robinson all day, all Monday night. So you got to be able to run some motion with guys like Anthony Miller if you run the right route, Darnell Mooney, and maybe get some action out the backfield. That's going to be a key for the Bears winning this game as far as offensively against the Rams.
That's a great point. Hey, did anybody have any closing remarks before we close out this segment? The game is actually Monday night. So any closing out comments anybody want to add before we close out for the night?
Well, I want to share something with y'all.
Okay.
I bought this like 5 years ago before I left Chicago, and I have yet to get a frame for it. I've got to find me a really nice frame for it. But y'all tell me if y'all can tell who this is. If y'all can fully see it.
Walter Payton.
Looks like Walter Payton to me.
Sweetness. Greatest running back to ever play the game.
It's actually a wood burning painting.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
I was like,
greatest running back to ever play the game.
It was like, I want
hands down.
Man.
Find me a really nice frame for it.
Okay. No, that's nice. That's a nice piece.
You already know how I feel about Sweetness, man.
Yeah.
And if any of y'all can say what y'all want about who y'all think is the greatest, and that's fine. All I got to tell you to do is go on YouTube and look at the 1977 season. Walter Payton is what happens when you have no quarterback, Bob Avellini. You have no offensive line, and you still get 277 yards in a game.
Okay. Hey, thank you for tuning in to Bears Banter. Have a nice evening.
Peace out, y'all.
Thanks a lot. Peace.